So we're going to start off and talk about SDRs. SDRs have been a big focus for us in the past, what is it, probably nearly a year now, thinking about all things SDR. And yeah, we have been doing it nearly a year within this business. I guess the first question is, what have we learned about SDRs, whether managing them or hiring them or training them, all of those things that we've been thinking about, what have we actually learned? So I'm gonna hand that over to Ben first up to see what he's got to say.
Interesting. SDR. So I think first of all, let's recognise that it's a really, really challenging job. I don't think there's any real understanding, if you're not in that role, of how difficult it can be. So when people are recruiting for these positions, it's often considered a very junior role. But the fact that these individuals need to be able to do copywriting, persuasion, analyzing software, research, data analysis, insight, reporting, it's a really complex job. So over the last year, working with some really different personalities, different experience levels, I recognise that there is no one size fits all. We're really fortunate in the fact that we've got a variety of different clients that we work with as well. So different sectors, different industries, different problems. All of this is being reflected back in new learnings and how we use tooling, how we coach the individual. So the thing that I've learned is how quickly we have to adapt as a leadership team to support these individuals in the role, but also control our expectations of the individuals as they're coming into this, either as a first or a second sales job, so that we can really support them to get up to speed. There's just a lot of moving parts. So that's been my take, and there's probably a hell of a lot more, but they're the key points I take away.
Yep. And Sara, what are your thoughts? I know you've been looking at hiring in particular, diving right into that. Is that one of the areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what's been really interesting on this journey is I've not worked with SDRs before. So particularly at the very start, working with Ben and our advisory board on, okay, what kind of characteristics are we looking for? It kind of was very, I guess, theoretical. So it's been a really interesting year actually jumping in and discovering. And to what Ben said, I think like this is a really hard job. But what I have really seen are that there are some characteristics that really will put you in a good space. So we talk a lot about the need for SDRs to be a sponge. And I think we have hired very well in terms of finding people who are really, really keen to learn and will, if given the right environment and encouragement, will literally go and try to figure out any kind of way that they can either develop themselves or figure out different ways of doing things. So I think we talk a lot about, resilience, but in this role, it is tough to find motivation every single day to get on phones, to discover something new, to be confident, to be creative as well. And I think those individuals who are really driven to develop themselves and are in the right environment to that really thrive. So it's been really interesting, I think, for me personally to go from I guess, theoretical conversations to really seeing how that plays out. One in the recruitment process, trying to really recruit for those characteristics, but then seeing that live in the office as well, and really understanding what makes a difference in this role and how to hire for that.
I think that office point's really interesting because I think we all kind of had a theory before the business started that the office environment was fundamental to allowing SDRs to thrive. And having sat in that office and sat with them as they've experienced the highs and lows and the camaraderie that's generated, that's been the real proof to me that was the right theory hypothesis. Is that something that you feel as well? Sara, you answer them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had, a couple of days when we were kicked out of the office because there was a fire nearby, and everyone coming in that day afterwards, you could really tell in the energy, like everyone felt that as well, of how hard, particularly for an SDR role, it is, particularly being remote, sitting on your own at home trying to do it. But that learning through osmosis, right? Again, I think it's something that is very topical, and I think in this role particularly, every single conversation someone's having is a learning opportunity for everybody, right? And yes, you can learn from your own journey, but suddenly we've got new candidates, new hires coming into this space. And from day one, they're learning because everyone else is still learning and learning something new every day as well. And that just compounds, right? as well as the kind of other additional stuff we put around. So there's an element of like motivation, other people sharing in that journey. The learning for me is the key thing. It's just knowing now anyone else who joins is just going to have 10 times the opportunity to learn that they would have otherwise, working either in isolation, whether it's remotely or just being the only SDR in a team as well. But it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
and
have
that
to
point,
agree. Sorry, I was just going to say, in terms of when we were making this decision, I want to put my hands up and say I was actually on the fence. So when you're juggling client delivery, when you're juggling, staff well-being and high performance business, and looking to create a commercially viable entity, it is without a doubt way more profitable for us to have individuals working at home. There's no doubt about it. But what I've seen is, through discussion before we launched, is to bring people in is, absolutely sacrificing that margin to make sure that we've got a far more conducive working environment. And it's a decision I'm glad we all made together, because I think if I'd had my way, purely just looking at how can we get tech to help us, you've got these virtual calling rooms and sales floors, and there's a whole bunch of new tooling to help people work virtually together. You cannot beat being in the room, the water cooler moments, the listening in on somebody else's calls. So I'm over the moon we made the decision to go the way we've gone.
good. And I guess we're starting to talk about tech. And another point that Sara mentioned there was about learning. And I think one of the things that's really interesting is that the business really positions the role of SDRs as somebody that's learning continuously. It's not like here's your first month's training and then you're done, you're an SDR. It's almost continuous and permanent. And Ben, it'd be good for you to talk about some of the ways that we do that within the business, in terms of knowledge sharing and the information that's almost daily posted into areas that SDRs can benefit from, and what we're going to do with that later.
Yeah, sure. So, my background's been around training and coaching sales teams for a long time. So I've seen many various ways of supporting salespeople to upskill. And tragically, the training and the coaching is one of the first things to stop when the pressure comes on for hitting targets or slow months or whatever it might be. And the thing that training does really well is, as you'd expect, imparts knowledge. You think that's then going to make the biggest difference, but without continual coaching and creating those learnings habitual, it falls by the wayside. So we're in a really fortunate position where it's a brand new business, and let's design this learning program from scratch so it becomes part of the culture. So we do it a few ways. There is a taught element. So one of us as a leadership team taking a subject in on a Monday and training said subject out. So talking about the theory, understanding practical application, giving working examples, having discussions, and then giving a toolkit to be able to enable those SDRs to take that learning into their role and refine it. And then throughout the week, we have either SDR-led sessions where they get together as a group without the leadership team to discuss how they are making that application into their role. On a Wednesday, we'll do some more role play sessions. Again, that will be led by one of the senior salespeople or one of the leadership team. Thursdays, again, they come together and review how the week is going. And then Fridays, I will do call review sessions. So we'll go in and actually, if the subject for the week had been objection handling, we get the calls where people have been trying to handle objections and critically review them. I think it's really important not to use that as a coaching session. Having an environment where people are getting critical feedback and practical ways to adapt is far better than helping someone come to their own conclusions where they don't have that skill set yet. So we coach desk side. We train 2 days a week. We regularly review on a weekly basis, and that's the human element. Other areas where we're looking to enable is look at competency management and scoring, so evidence-based competency, and where individuals need to make an improvement or strengthen an area of their day-to-day. We also, because I'm a bit of a LinkedIn nerd and I spend a lot of time in it, anything that we see that's valuable, we're sharing on an internal resource in Slack. So here's an article about X subject. You could apply it by doing A, B, and C. If you feel it's valuable, go practice it. We're not enforcing them to take on every little piece of information I see, but let's continue to share that knowledge and have it in a searchable format, which then leads us on to how we're using Notion as a knowledge base, which Sara is absolutely dominating in at the moment, which is brilliant, is building out this huge SDR knowledge base by where we want people to be able to come to us with solutions. So if they've got a problem, go and search how to handle it yourself, come up with a few ideas, and then talk to us about what you want to do, as opposed to just hands up, Ben, I've got the situation, can you help? So we're encouraging all of our team members, regardless of level, to come up with the answers themselves and then discuss a way forwards. And no doubt that will evolve. There's new tools, technologies, ways people learn in different styles, and we're on top of that. But ultimately, we need to ensure that there is new information coming into the business that is outside of my own experience and outside of the leadership team sphere of influence, because we do not know it all. So we've got to make sure that they're getting a fair access to quite a lot of information.
And Sara, to add to that, it sounds like a lot of it's about creating a culture of learning, and I think that's something that you're really passionate about. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to jump in with. So clearly, I'm very passionate about it. But yeah, I think for me, it's understanding that to be able to impart knowledge and to retain it, the culture of learning, and also that kind of, I guess, solid foundation for people to feel safe to try is really important. So when we talk about particularly hiring new team members, the onboarding is really trying to build that foundation. So giving them a lot of we're not going to assume that you know this, but this is really important. Let's build, all that really solid foundation. And then a lot of it is creating an environment where they are prepared for the journey that they're going to go on. We're going to let them know that we are expecting them to fall flat on their face. And that's part of the journey. You can't succeed without that. And building that culture where we are communicating, we're being transparent, we're asking for support, we're not just trying to figure it out on our own, so we can figure out how we can then uniquely support individuals. Because as Ben said, everyone is unique. We can share in a copious different ways, but the coaching element to really enable them also on their individual campaigns is really important. So I think those first 2 weeks particularly, building what good looks like, setting those expectations and enabling them to feel safe enough to jump and start trying things, for me is really critical. Once you've got past those 2 weeks, then those are more or less going to be natural things that are built. When we talk about the office environment, that's part of the power of having a team as well. If you've done, the onboarding well enough, new people coming in will see what good looks like, and they will just mirror that. Like we're talking about sponges again, right? They're going to see what exists, and they're just going to replicate that as well. So absolutely, that kind of the culture around setting those expectations, creating a safe environment, and creating the right habits is the right foundation you need. Then you can share the knowledge, everything else, and help them actually get out and just start testing things as well.